I want to say a word and then conclude on the notion of conscience. And I think this is I want to find where my note is on that. If you go to Gaudium et Spes, number 16 and 17. I knew I'd find it. It's one of the areas that's worth your study, because it's one of the most misunderstood and confusing areas, not only in this document, but in the life of our church since the Second Vatican Council. What does it mean to have a good conscience and to have a well-formed conscience? I still have another, what do I have, 3 more minutes? About 3 minutes, okay. In this 3 minutes, I'm going to concentrate just on those 2 paragraphs on conscience. Number 16. Deep within their consciences, men and women discover a law which they have not laid upon themselves, and which they must obey. Its voice, ever calling them to love and do what is good and avoid evil, tells them inwardly at the right moment, do this and shun that. That's a quote now from Gaudium et Spes. Their dignity, it says here, for they have in their hearts a law inscribed by God. So we're talking now about natural law, a law inscribed by God in their hearts. Their dignity rests in observing this law, and by it they will be judged. The document says Christ came now to serve and not to judge. He will judge at the end of time, but he comes now to serve. The church comes to serve. That's what this document says. So it says here, their dignity rests in observing this law, and by it they will be judged. Conscience is people's most secret core and their sanctuary. And then it says this: the more a correct conscience prevails, the more do persons and groups turn aside from blind choice and endeavor to conform to the objective standards of moral conduct. So a well-formed conscience will guide a culture. And then, and this is the part that has sometimes been misunderstood or controversial, yet it often happens that conscience goes astray through ignorance, which it is unable to avoid without thereby losing its dignity. A conscience can go astray through ignorance, but without its own fault, but it does not lose its dignity. And then the corrective of that. This cannot be said of the person who takes little trouble to find out what is true and good, or when conscience is gradually almost blinded by the habit of committing sin. This is a very important document to study. It's basically saying that your conscience is God's voice within you. You need to form that conscience. We know that out of no fault of your own, if you form that conscience indirectly, we still need to honor your conscience. This is why when someone is an atheist, they say, I don't believe in God, I think it's a bad formed conscience, because I personally think God exists, don't you? But even though it's a bad formed conscience, I approach them with great dignity. I see dignity in them. But then it says, and this is the part that reaches to us, if you take little trouble to find out what is good and what is true, or if your conscience is blinded by a habit of committing sin, you are not excused. And so the formation of conscience is perhaps the most deeply held part of this document, and one that will deserve our careful study.